Usually, when a person shows immediate understanding or great faith, Jesus responds with joy, sometimes exclaiming, "What great faith! Your faith has saved you." We see this with the Canaanite woman, the Roman centurion, the woman with a hemorrhage. And yet when Martha says, "I know my brother will rise on the resurrection on the last day," Jesus doesn't just affirm her. He pushes for more. "I am the resurrection and the life." Why? In part because he's planning to do something much sooner than the last day. He will raise Lazarus today. Yet there's still more. Despite the astounding miracle of a man walking out of a tomb 4 days after dying, it is something of a moot point. Lazarus just dies again later on. What's the big difference if he's still dead in the end? The answer to that is what Jesus is getting at. When dealing with miracles and salvation and faith, Christians tend to focus mostly on one of two approaches. Either they speak almost exclusively of the hope of heaven and the final resurrection, or they sensationalize the power of God to heal, to cast out demons, to do miracles, to answer prayers. You'll find plenty of Christians who talk like all of life is a waiting game for all the good stuff at the end. You'll also find plenty of Christians who focus so much on the power of faith and prayer to do amazing things right now that you wonder if they really want heaven or just want wealth and superpowers. The truth, of course, is that our faith encompasses both realities. Salvation and heaven are indeed far more important than miracles here and now. Yet Jesus did spend a lot of time healing people and doing wondrous things. Miracles are not just evidence for our faith in God. They are acts of love, expression of God's desire for our happiness. It is the Catholic both and. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead because he loves him, and to teach us about salvation and the final resurrection of heaven. There is, however, a third thing that might get missed in the tension between present-day miracles and end-of-the-world salvation. That third thing is, on the practical level, the one we deal with most on a day-to-day basis. When Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, he proves his claim to Martha that whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Yet then he says, everyone who lives and believes in me will never die, which raises a new question. Since Lazarus is raised from the dead, we could say he lives and believes in Jesus, right? He's done the "even if he dies, he will live" part of Jesus' promise. What about the "will never die" part? He does live again, but then he also dies again, doesn't he? No. The miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead is both proof of God's love and a reminder of the final resurrection. It is also a lesson on what truly living means right now for a Christian. When Lazarus is raised from the dead, it is not only his body that is given new life, but his soul. His body will die again, but the life of the soul he's been given now will never die. This is what St. Paul is talking about in the second reading, when he says, "Those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh. On the contrary, you are in the Spirit." Our faith not only produces miracles here and now, it does do that. Our faith not only promises eternal life in the future, it does that too. Beyond those, our faith starts eternal life here and now. Those without Christ, those without grace, are already dead in the flesh, incapable of pleasing God. They have life in the body for now, but they are spiritually dead. And those who receive Christ and his grace gain new life, which is why we make such a big deal out of baptism. It raises the dead. Lazarus being raised from the dead is both a literal, historical, physical miracle and a metaphor for baptism. Like Lazarus, the baptized will still die physically one day. But the new life begun in baptism continues uninterrupted into heaven. We already have a supernatural life worth living. And that very dynamic is at play in the strange conversation Jesus has with his apostles before going to Bethany. When Jesus tells them he wants to go to Judea to help Lazarus, the apostles remind him that the Judean leaders were just trying to stone you. Rather than saying, "Don't worry about it, I've got miraculous powers," and rather than saying, "Don't worry about it, the goal is to die and go to heaven anyway," Jesus says this cryptic line, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble." What does he mean? Besides being astronomically correct, daylight in Jerusalem and here is about 12 hours at this time of year. It is also a reference to the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles, a symbol of the followers of God's covenant. He means that daylight is the time for work for those who have faith. Because it is daylight, Jesus is going to do his job while there's time to do it and obey the Father. He's not worried about stumbling, not worried that the Judeans might kill him, because he's walking during the day with faith and obedience to his Father. Now, Thomas doesn't really understand this, but to his credit, he does trust Jesus enough to say, "Let us also go and die with him." This is the third thing I mentioned that comes between present-day miracles and end-of-the-world salvation, the life of grace here and now. As St. Paul says, the Spirit of God dwells in you, so you can now please God. This is what Jesus pushes for with Martha's act of faith. It's not enough that she believes in the final resurrection. It's not enough that she believes Jesus can do miracles here and now. What Jesus wants from her is the faith to live the life of grace now, so that when she dies, her spiritual life continues uninterrupted, that she can believe and live in Jesus and so never die. When Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, he doesn't just give physical life to Lazarus. He gives spiritual life to Lazarus and Martha and Mary and many of the Jews who witnessed all of it. Those who keep that faith will never die. So how do we receive this spiritual life? How do we keep this Spirit dwelling in us so that we can live and believe in Jesus and therefore never die? First, by being baptized with faith. And then, by remembering there are 12 hours in the day. Jesus is resolute in doing good while it is metaphorically daylight. Doing good despite the risk of death. How do I know if the Spirit of God dwells in me or in anyone? By our willingness to do the right thing, even when we might suffer for it. That's what Jesus means when he says, if one walks during the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. In other words, so long as you are choosing to do the right thing for the sake of Christ, you do not need to be afraid if that choice puts you at risk of suffering, rejection, or even death. Again, Thomas the Apostle doesn't fully get it, but he gets it enough to say, let us go to die with him. Will you make the words of St. Thomas the Apostle your own? You may not always receive visible miracles, just as Martha and Mary did not get to see Jesus save Lazarus from death. You cannot yet see the final resurrection, just as all those present have not seen it yet. But you can respond with enough faith to see the light of the world here and now. Can you walk during the day by doing the right things regardless of the cost? To persevere in good deeds, works of mercy, acts of love that cost you something. And if you cannot, then you are no better than Lazarus laying dead in the tomb, tied hand and foot. As Jesus called Lazarus, hear him call you. Come out of the tomb of unbelief. Hear him when he commands the church to untie you, to set you free from the bonds of sin through baptism and confession, to release you from the grip of the fear of death. Believe in him by taking to heart his word, and live in him by doing good, even at cost to yourself. Live and believe in him, and you will never die.